everybody knows that this is an MS Advocacy Hub program. This is a program series that MS Views and News began at the beginning of COVID to basically inform the MS community about important resources that are available. So we do want to let you know about this. And for those that don't know, well, you know who I am. Well, maybe you don't know who I am because maybe you don't know me. But my name is Stuart Schlossman. I am an MS patient. I'm also president and founder of MS Views and News. And we'll talk about that another time. So tonight's program, we have our supporters of tonight's program. As you can see, we have Santa Fe Genzyme, we have Bristol Myers Squibb, and we have Biogen. And now we'll roll on to the next thing. And what do we have? Well, we have tonight's topic. We have Lisa Gonzalez-Goetz. She's a very well-known, especially in South Florida, disability attorney. Okay, she works actually around the United States, handling disability law for people that are looking to get Social Security disability. And so tonight she's going to speak to us. Well, she's not really speaking. I'm doing an interview with Lisa, okay? And she's going to answer the questions, and it's going to look like a new presentation format. But Lisa will be interviewed about many things concerning disability law, and I'm going to juggle it around. She's not really going to know where the questions are coming from, okay? But if you have any questions, please use the scroll bar on the right side of the page. Find the red arrow at the top, it's a red box with a white arrow inside of it. Click on that, type your questions. Please, please, please do not ask me anything online that you may have written to us, okay? Because I'm tired. I'm going to forget, and I don't want to have to ask the same question twice and then have somebody tell me, oh, you already asked that, okay? So please don't. All right, let's welcome Lisa. Hello, Lisa. First, tell us about you.
Hi, Stu. My name is Lisa Gonzalez-Goetz. I'm originally from Puerto Rico. I moved to Florida in 1984. I graduated from the University of Florida and then went to Temple Law School, where I graduated in 1992. And since then, this is the only practice I've done is Social Security disability law.
Okay, thank you for that. So let's flop around these questions a bit, all right? So since the start of the pandemic, have you seen any changes in the process of applying for Social Security disability?
Initially, the process was bottlenecked and everybody stayed home and they didn't do a lot of online. Now, the process is going pretty smoothly with some exceptions. So the changes that I've seen now, a year and a half later, have been nationwide. They've been between a 1% and a 4% increase in approval rate at all levels. They've also found that the cases are moving a lot quicker. Perhaps that's because people aren't going into the office and the office is a little more streamlined, maybe with less customers, but it's working a lot more efficient that way. However, the problems I've encountered are individuals who apply for disability and perhaps the proper application wasn't put forth. And so now they're going in front of a judge at a quicker pace without the proper documentation. So now that's slowed down. And the actual lack of support staff for certain offices in the government is creating a backlog with actual decision writing. At the federal level, because of COVID, they didn't have enough people to transcribe. So there were hundreds of cases nationwide that got stayed, which means they just had to sit there and wait in line until somebody was available to transcribe the record. So now, a year and a half later, we're seeing it lifted a little more. And I think in an effort for the federal court to process favorable claims, they're actually approving more than they normally would. So that's kind of like the offset and the good news. Hearings are now not in person. They're still not in person for the foreseeable future. And the reason is we're dealing with a population that is susceptible to getting sick and illnesses. Everybody who's applying for disability is sick. And the staff, Social Security staff, is also concerned about that. So there's all the doors to Social Security are closed to the public, and the hearings are handled telephonically, not through Zoom like we have the opportunity to do tonight because it's too confusing, but it's all done through the phone. And believe it or not, it's working quite efficiently. So that's nice. People can use their cell phones, saving not only us as attorneys, but clients, the anxiety of appearing face-to-face in front of a judge, waiting for the judge, parking, finding the office. All those things are now out of the equation. So it really becomes about the client and their disability.
Okay, thank you for that. So first, let me let everybody know we're not on Zoom. We're on GoToWebinar. So that is something different, okay? Secondly, you mentioned that all your clients or people that are applying for disability are sick, but MS people are not sick. It's not what we are. So can you redefine, what it was that you were saying there, just so people are clear?
So people have either autoimmune deficiencies, or they're more compromised and susceptible, or they're more anxious, and at the beginning, it was terrified of acquiring COVID. So I don't mean sick, I mean more compromised.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. Hey, before I go forward with the regular questions, tell us what you do at Gonzalez-Goetz.
Well, I was the founding partner. I work with my husband. We've worked together for over 20 years. We started a small local practice with disability, and as we progress, now we're nationwide. We do everything from receiving a client who's considering applying for disability, to people who have been denied and need an appeal, to people that have hearings, and then moving forward, people who have had hearings and gotten denied at a hearing and may want to take it further up. We've extended the practice now to deal with veterans because we find that there's a lot of need for that. And so we're doing some VA law also. And then more recently, in an effort to be able to offer services to the clients that we have existing, we've offered Medicare Advantage planning. So there's a lot of different components because people, it's a very confusing process. It's a very lengthy process. It's time consuming, paper driven, and the government is, they play to their judge and jury, right? They determine whether or not you're entitled to receive benefits, and they also judge whether you qualify and pay the benefits. So I advocate for the disabled, and I have since I graduated from law school.
Great, thank you. All right, so next, a person walks into your office or calls you on the phone and says, I want disability benefits. How do you size them up, so to speak?
Okay, we have a pre-qualifying questionnaire that I created for the staff. A lot of the questions that we have are the type of questions that define disability per Social Security. So one of them is whether or not you're currently working, and if you are, how much you're working, why you feel you're not able to work, and for how long. So the disability definition is 12 months or more of a person unable to work because of a mental or a physical condition. So the way we size them up, I'm not here to judge anybody who's calling my office. So I believe that anybody who's calling the office actually feels they have a case. So we just ask questions as very open-ended. When did you stop working? Why do you feel that you're not able to work? Are you getting treatment from a medical doctor? And if you are getting treatment, what kind of treatment and how frequently? And I think that gives us a portrayal of a disability and what the person is doing to care for that disability. And then based on that, I gauge whether or not they're entitled to benefits, or I think I can win a case, and what kind of case they should apply for or they're entitled to get.
Gotcha. So can you share with us common misconceptions today about the disability benefits?
Well, I think the first most common misconception that I've ever had in my almost 30 years of practice is that people think that's not for me, or it's just a certain individual kind of the population, but that doesn't apply to me. And I think it's a misnomer, because 10% of the population, it has been proven that at some point in time will be disabled, whether it's for a period of time, a short-term or a long-term period. So 1 in 10 people, that's a big misconception, because there's a lot of prejudice with people. There's a lot of people that suffer internally quietly, that don't want to share their illness with people close to them because they don't want to be judged. And I think that familial support is very important when you're going through this process. So that's a negative perception that becomes a misconception around people generally.
Okay, thank you. So a person is asking, can I work while on Social Security disability? And if so, how much can I make? Okay.
The definition of disability, like I said, is no work for 12 months or more. Anytime that you put, anytime that you are claiming that you're not able to work and you do work, you're opening the door to assess whether or not you are able to or not able to work. So work is defined a couple different ways. It's defined either by 40 hours a week consistently, or it's defined by amount of money per month that you would bring in. Currently, for this year, right now, I can't find it, but I think it's about $1,300 that you're able to, $1,360, something like that. I'll look it up before the end of this, but I strongly discourage people openly to not try to get to that amount of money per month, because you open the doors to whether or not you're able to make more, and you're keeping your hours or your money artificially low. So it's very hard for a person, because they turn around and they say they want to apply for disability, they want to get the Medicare, the benefits with it, the income that comes with it, but then at the same time, the minute they get it, they try to go back to work, and then that kind of tips it to open. Now there is something, and I'm gonna kind of give you an offshoot, there is something called a trial work period. When you do receive benefits, the government wants you to go back to work. And so they give you this ability to try to work full time, and then the money that you make, it doesn't matter, right? So you can make as much money as you want. We're gonna not count it against you for a lifetime of 9 months. And that's in a lifetime of receiving disability period benefits. So the trial work period is really to see whether or not you're able to work. In that aspect, it doesn't matter how much money you work, but they're very different concepts of working while you're applying and trying to receive benefits, or working once you receive benefits and you're on the books, if that makes sense.
A little bit. I'm sure people should have questions about it though. And if you have questions, please go to the red box at the top of the screen with the white arrow in it, click on it and type your questions, okay? All right, something related. So there's a person named Mark asking, how long after you get awarded disability can you go on Medicare?
So it's not after you've gotten awarded disability, it's after you've been found disabled. So I could be awarded disability today, but have become disabled in 2016 or 2019. So it's really from the date of onset of disability and moving forward 29 months. 29 months after you've been found disabled, you're automatically entitled to Medicare benefits.
So how would they know that though? When you say that they're found disabled, is that by the courts or is that by just knowing from their doctor that they're disabled?
Okay, that's a great question because people will call me and say, hey, Lisa, I've been found disabled. But disabled, when I say disabled, is by the Social Security Administration. Doesn't have to be by a judge, it could be by a lower level, but definitely the administration has found and deemed that you're unable to work and disabled.
Okay, thank you for that. Next, once receiving Social Security, how much money can a person make, or is that based on what they made to begin with?
Are you asking me how much money a person's entitled to get when they receive disability?
Sure, we'll go with that first.
Okay, so the amount of money you receive when you become disabled, there are different programs, but if you've paid money into the system and you've paid your FICA Social Security taxes, you're entitled to receive a portion of that money, and it's based on what you actually paid in.
So if a person made $1,000 a month versus a person that made $25,000 a month, I mean, that's a crazy number for a lot of people, right? But okay, so what if they did? What's the option and what's the difference on how one gets paid or what percentage they get from the $1,000 a month that they were earning versus the $20,000 a month that they were earning?
Okay, so that's called the primary insurance amount. The lingo is a PIA for short. You can go on the Social Security website. You can look and see, based on your information, how much money you've paid into the system your entire life, and it gets calculated by them. Unless there's been fraud and at an IRS level, that's the number that's attributable to you. So of course, a person that's making $25,000 a month is going to receive a higher amount. Now there is a max for that yearly.
Right. So going forward, we hear from people that even though that the disability rate of income went up, what was it, X% for 2022, that if they made over a certain amount of money, they're not being given that, they were never sent that letter that they're going to get the same interest increase. Is that true, or does that go to everybody?
That goes to everybody.
9%?
I'm sorry. That goes to everybody across the board.
Okay, great. All right,
yeah.
Thank you for that. All right, so in general, how long would one expect to wait before obtaining approval for disability once an application is completed?
Okay, that's determined based on geographical areas. So you can go online for your specific geographical area. The time for approval, there's no set time. There's various levels and there's differing times in different levels. Now, it could take anywhere like 6 months, or it can take up to 2 years. So my advice, and I know you haven't asked me this question, but it's one of the most used questions, and one of the most important things that people need to understand when they're going to be applying for disability is you need familial support. I talked about this before.
Right.
You need to make sure that people know your doctors are suggesting you stop working. We're all on board with this because the process is long. You're not going to be able to work. You're going to have medical costs. And the people that have been able to endure the waiting period do much, much better with that. And the people whose condition deteriorate the most during the process of waiting, it is because they have found themselves losing their home, losing their spouse, alone, and that's a very hard situation to be in. So 2 things, it's a lengthy delay. One of the questions you asked me earlier was, how long is it? What are the changes with COVID? It seems as though it picks up very quickly, but at certain levels it slows down. So I don't have an answer because there is no set time. Every decision takes about 1 to 3 months. So we've calculated it could take 6 months for a very quick approval when you have everything lined up. and it can take up to 2 years.
Okay, thank you. So, great answer. Next thing is, if a person's never worked, how do they get disability?
Okay, so I introduced the concept that there's more than one program, right? We've been talking about this whole time about people who have worked and how much money they've paid into the system and taxes. But not everybody who is disabled has either been able to pay money into the system or has paid enough money into the system. So there's another program aside from the DIB program, which is a Title II, which you know, in the lingo is referred to as SDI, you know, Social Security Disability Income. There's something called SSI, and that's Supplemental Security Income. That's under the Title 16 of the program. And for that, you have to prove, 1, that you're disabled, and 2, that you're indigent. And indigent it changes yearly, but as a rule of thumb, it's less than $2,000 total resources, excluding your home and a car. And that's a high burden plus the disability. So that's an SSI program. Sometimes, like you said, Stu, you have people that haven't paid that much into the system. So their primary insurance amount, the money they receive, is less than currently $777.
Right.
So if they were receiving $500 from what they paid into the system, they can now get the other $277 through SSI. Different programs give you different things too. So the Disability Insurance Benefit Program gives you the Medicare. The SSI, if you're indigent and you can prove that as well as disability, will give you the Medicaid.
Okay, so here's another question to go further along with this, all right? It's important. So a person worked in their early years of life, and in their later years, they decided they didn't need to work anymore. They're not of retirement age yet, but all of a sudden they became disabled at 50 or 60 years old, and they may not have worked for the last 20 years. What happens and they're not indigent? Now what?
They don't qualify.
Right. And so there's no way for that person then to get any kind of disability benefits at that point in time.
Not at that point in time. I have experienced this personally with many friends who have decided that they were going to leave their profession and raise kids, and later on they get a diagnosis. They don't qualify for SSI, and they last worked too long ago, and they don't qualify.
That's right. And that's what I have seen many times as well. And nobody asked that, but I just thought that would be a good tag on question. Another one is if a person's been on SSDI and then decided that they wanted to try returning to work, and they did that maybe for 5 years, okay, maybe 10 years. And now, though, they learned that their disability has gotten much worse again, and again, they cannot work, and they go to apply for Social Security disability again. Now what?
The process is the same. I think that we try not to be judgy, right? But everybody's a little judgy. In this case, I think it works in your favor because it shows that you receive benefits, and when you got better, you did go back to work, so it works in your benefit. And I've seen those cases be very, very successful. What there is an advantage to is that there's a lifetime of what they call a 5-month waiting period. There's this, Congress decided there's a 5-month waiting period before your benefits begin, and that's in your lifetime. So in the first case, when they received benefits, they had that 5-month waiting period. At the second point, after 10 years or whatever not working, they go back to work. They go back to apply for disability. They would be entitled to that very same day that they stopped working.
Okay, thank you for that. Now, Whew, here comes another interesting one, okay?
You got me sweating.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, okay.
Don't do that. Don't do that. Let's go lower the
It's
air
a lot.
conditioning, okay? Things are going to get hotter here, okay? All right, next. We have if a person has been working part-time, all right, and collecting disability. And so now, though, they've been told that they're no longer needed at their job. Can they collect unemployment?
So the answer is yes. However, when you collect unemployment, you're saying that you're willing and you're able to work.
Right.
And when you collect disability, you're saying that you're not able to work.
Right.
So again, not being judgy, but how it affects people making decisions in your case is that you're double dipping.
Right.
So legally, though, it should not affect. And it may be a reason to fight it. But the reason has to be because you can't work full time on a continuous basis. So if you were working part time and you got let go, it should not affect your benefits.
Okay. Thank you for that. Mm-hmm. All right. Next. Thank you for all these wonderful answers. Okay. Next, the person is writing, my disability lawyer says it's not okay to get a physical as long as everything I'm treated for is documented in my medical charts. Do you agree?
So I had this conversation with a gentleman today who has had multiple rods and surgeries on his back, hip, and knees. And Social Security doctor wanted to see him, and we advised him he needed to go. And we had a conversation follow up after that doctor appointment. And the gentleman that I'm talking about was an attorney. So he was telling me, you know, this doctor barely examined him, barely did anything. He knew nothing. He took his pressure, blood pressure, with the same machine that the gentleman has in his house. And I said, I understand. It makes it easier for me to kind of expel that record, that medical exam from the record and attack it. But we do try, and my suggestion to any client would be to try to conform with these tests. Yeah. Because you're trying to get the benefits. Now, what they are doing right now because of COVID is a lot of them are telehealth.
True, thank you. I got a surprise, walked into the room a few moments ago. I don't know how, because I could have sworn I closed my door, but this doggy came in the room. And I'm hoping nobody excites him, that he doesn't bark too much. So if you start hearing a dog barking, you'll know why, okay? All right. Next, another person is writing, if I get extra help due to low income on disability, what would happen if I started getting my late husband's Social Security? I make $1,363 a month right now. We'll get around $650 a month for my husband. I'm 63 and I'm struggling to survive. I don't know what the question is, though.
Okay, well, I think the only comforting thought is that that's one of the things Social Security really gets correct. They give you the maximum amount allowed, whether a person is a widow, divorced, whether they've worked. So they'll calculate the amount. And it's all on an individual basis. So I'm not able to actually answer with a number, but I'll say that whatever number they're giving you is going to be the highest calculable amount.
Great. Thank you for that. So can a person ever dispute the amount that's awarded to them versus what they think they should be getting?
Yes, they can. I mean, you can dispute anything. I've had cases where people have worked in small mom and pop shops and have paid in FICA, and the employers never paid into the IRS. So these people who expected a certain amount of money at their end or retirement, they didn't qualify because the employers hadn't paid the IRS. So that was a disputable amount. Today I had an individual who had not worked since January of 2020, but had $20,000 worth of income. In that case, it was the earned tax credit, and it could not go against that individual. even though judgy, presumably they were taking advantage of something, but Congress have said you can't do that. If you feel, and that's one of the reasons everybody should be checking their earnings record, is if you feel in any year that the monies you made is actually higher than what's showing, then you need to speak to your tax advisor and you need to amend those taxes and make those changes. With regard to what Social Security gives you and the monies you receive, that's the one thing they seem to get pretty accurate, is how much you're entitled to get.
Great. Do people need to pay taxes on their income earned from Social Security disability?
I believe no.
Okay. All right. Actually, there's another answer to that also, but I learned that recently from an accountant, and that is that, depending on how much they were getting from other sources of income as well, which could have been passive income, you're only allowed up to a certain amount before you then get taxed. So
I don't even want to know how you know that. I
know people. Okay. So yeah, it was, I think the number that they gave that I was told from this person was that he was allowed to make up to 25,000 with the Social Security disability income, and that would not get taxed. But anything above the 25,000, that's when he gets taxed. Okay. All right. Next, person writes, I have SSDI. What should I do to prepare for my 7-year review? Pray.
I would say to make sure you're on board with your doctor. Make sure that you have objective records, x-rays, MRIs, CAT scans recent. Make sure that you have ongoing medications that are prescribed that you take for your disability, and make sure that you are continuing with doctor treatment. The law for a review is really simple: whether or not your condition has improved. And the government has to show your condition improved. If it stayed the same or deteriorated, you're entitled to benefits. So the proof for a review, a continuing disability review, CDR is what they call it, is just really that you have not improved. If you stop going to doctors, if you stop taking medication, if you stop getting treatment for your conditions, then that's how Social Security will say that you have improved.
Great, thank you. Hey, we must be doing a great job covering the topics, because we only had 2 questions online. I know I have a lot in front of me, and I know I told people not to write in if they already sent in a question, but we must be covering everything pretty good. Not too much extra coming along. So how long do you have to be off work before filing?
You can be off work for a day and file, but you have to be out of work for 12 months or more throughout the process of filing.
Okay, thank you. I got to read this question real quick. So, person's writing, I was diagnosed with relapse remitting MS in 1997. I'm now retired because of my disability without ever having declared as disabled. Is there any monetary advantage in attempting to be reclassified as disabled at the age of 67?
No. You're getting, again, the most amount of money that you could get at the age of 67, and there's no benefit to SSI or DIB at that point.
Okay. So are there any changes to a person's income if they're living in a nursing home?
So right now, hang on one second. Right now, with regard to nursing homes, there are some changes that the current administration is looking at. But nothing has been decided. So with regard to nursing homes right now, most of the changes that Congress is looking at with regard to the laws have to do with COVID. They have to do with taking care of people statistically, how many people have died in different states. In that aspect, they're reforming nursing healthcare laws, and eventually it'll trickle down to Social Security. But currently, right now, Social Security is monitoring the proposed changes, but the proposed changes for Social Security fall in a bill. It's like one little sentence within 55 pages of a bill, and I'm making up 55 pages. But basically, once they reform the nursing homes, then they'll start to look at Social Security. So right now, no, but it is going to be coming down the pipe.
Great, thank you. So there's a long question with somebody asking if you have knowledge of the All-Sup service. Do you know what that is? If yes, I will read it. Okay, great. So what's your experience and knowledge with All-Sup, ALLSUP service? I hear recommendations to get a lawyer, but wonder about the All-Sup option. And is it true that the max fee for help is $6,000? And what is the minimum fee?
Okay. The guy who started All-Sup worked for Social Security for about 4 years. He was a claims representative, and he determined that he could help people, and he created this amazing company. It's a company, corporation, and it helps a lot of disabled people. It was local, now it's nationwide. My suggestion would always be to look at an attorney instead of an attorney as opposed to a representative, because an attorney representative can appeal the case after the judge's level all the way to federal court, which representatives are not able to do. You can only do that if you're an attorney. With regard to saving money, because you're going to a non-attorney representative, it really, to me, it makes no sense, because the $6,000 that you mentioned, Stu, that's statutory. That's across the board. That's anybody who represents. I'm an attorney. I've been doing it 30 years. Another attorney who's been doing it 1 year. The max fee is $6,000 with some exceptions. So no matter who you are, whether you're an attorney or a non-attorney, that's the max fee currently that a person who represents you can receive as a fee for a fully favorable decision. So money, it's not as though you're saving money by going to All-Sup. All-Sup is very reputable. It's the guy's talked in front of Congress. He's talked in front of NOSCR. I mean, he's very, very reputable, but it runs as a corporation, as a volume practice, and it is not run by attorneys. So that's where I've seen a lot of cases fall through the cracks, where they haven't gone all the way up.
Okay, thank you. All right, next, back to SSI. If you're receiving SSI and close to the age 62, can you apply for retirement? And will you transfer your spousal credit since you're a homemaker?
That's the same question, basically, that you had before, as to whether or not you can go from one program to another. And Social Security will do it seamlessly, automatically, internally. So that's an easy internal issue with Social Security.
I must have missed the similarity because I'm a little tired, okay? All right, so here's one that's slightly different as well. Is there a seamless transition from SSDI to Social Security retirement? And if so, at what age does that happen?
Okay, so yeah, any time that you're on payment status with Social Security, just to kind of answer the questions, make sure that I answered the questions and that they all seem like they flow into each other. It seems as though the rule of thumb is every time you are on a payment status with Social Security, they are going to maximize your benefits and move you internally from whatever program you're entitled to receive. Does that answer the question?
Well, I guess. I mean, I'm asking a question for somebody else that asked the question. So, yes.
So I'll leave it open. If it didn't answer it, they're welcome to answer, but it seems as though the answer would be yes.
Right. So if you didn't answer it and this person is online right now, please ask another question to go along with this, and then we could follow up with it, okay? All right, next thing. Does having investment accounts set up for this person's kids put my SSDI in jeopardy?
No, not if it's based on the amount of money that you paid into the system. If you are under an SSI program where you have no resources, then you wouldn't have any money to invest in kids. So that would mean you're not eligible to do that as an SSI, and that will create problems. And I'll give you a quick example. A person was on SSI, they were receiving extra money on the side. They opened a safety deposit box in a bank. Person dies, they find the safety deposit box, they take that money, they confiscate it, they turn around and they charge this deceased person who's no longer with us with fraud, and then they're entitled to everything. So as long as you've paid money into the system and everything's kosher and you've gone along, you're fine. You can invest. It will not affect you.
Okay, great, fabulous. Now, here's one that's never been asked. What happens if a person on Social Security disability income wins the lottery and they make a lot of money from the lottery? How does that get attributed?
I would say just don't put your Social Security number if you played the lottery.
Is that like a passive income? I mean, you're not working, you bought a ticket.
Well, so I'll actually answer this tongue in cheek. Don't put your Social Security number in any winnings if you're collecting money. If it's SSI, and there are people that are on SSI and go to the casino or something, or win a lottery ticket, and all of a sudden they've lost all their benefits, they owe money back, it creates a nightmare. If you are a person who's paid money into the system, and is it passive income? It depends how often you have won money. So if it's the lottery and it was just one time, then not so much.
Right.
It is passive. However, if you're going to play poker and you have earnings and winnings, that is not passive income.
Okay.
Very clear. Big issue.
So take it another step. A person on Social Security disability, okay, is, yeah, exactly. A person on Social Security disability gets left a very large inheritance, and they have to put their Social Security number on it. Now what?
Does not affect them. Unless they're indigent, then it will knock them out of the program.
Okay, great. How long can you participate in the Right to Work program before SSD is discontinued?
That lovely Right to Work program. So the Right to Work program is only for people that have paid money into the system. And that 9-month trial work period that I discussed earlier,
right,
that gets accounted for in the trial work program. So it's a great program. It's not for any SSI recipients. It's a program that does put at risk your disability entitlement.
Okay.
And it's a program which was meant to provide vocational training, job readiness, resume writing classes. So it has a good foundation, but unfortunately, if you're on disability, you run the risk of losing your benefits if you do this program for more than 9 months.
Okay, thank you. All right. Long-term disability. Somebody's asking, can you tell me if long-term disability is required to be paid back?
So that's a great question. It's a great question because I actually know the answer to this. Not that I didn't know it to the others, but
right. You made it sound like that you're making them up.
We're all getting punchy. Okay.
Yes.
When I first started practicing, long-term disability did not have an offset. So people were able to collect their long-term disability amount and their Social Security amount. But long-term disability is a contractual agreement between you and the particular insurance company that your employer gave you. And every case is individual and you have to read it. And if you read it, you will probably find that, yes, you have to pay them back and there is an offset.
Okay, thank you. All right, this next question is from a person here in South Florida, and I'm not going to mention her name. No, I'm not going to mention her name. Okay, I was officially diagnosed with MS in 2015. I have not been declared disabled by my doctor. I am still working full time, but it's difficult due to the MS symptoms. I'm eligible to retire with 30 years of service in 2023, but I'll only be 53 years old. Would I be able to apply for disability since I'll be retiring at an early age due to my symptoms?
So first of all, we don't know what's going to happen when you're 53 years old because you're not 53 currently. So the condition may change. It may not just be because of your symptoms. So that's the first thing. The second thing is the main question that you would be asked from somebody like Social Security is, if you had not retired, would you still be able to work? And that's where you need to be able to show that your symptoms preclude your ability to work. So I'm actually I pulled something up because I think it's pretty timely. And I think it goes to this particular question, okay? Activities that Social Security is looking for to see whether or not you can do. Can you perform activities such as shopping? Can you travel without a companion or assistant? Can you ambulate without a wheelchair, walker, 2 canes, or crutch? Can you walk a block at a reasonable pace in rough or uneven surfaces? Can you take standard public transportation, climb a few steps at a reasonable pace? Can you prepare a simple meal and feed yourself?
Yeah.